What is going on, everybody? It's your boy John, and welcome back to Gearbox. So today we are beating up I-85, driving back to Greenville, South Carolina, and I figured what better time to film a video than right now, so we are going to get right into it. So, as you guys know, obviously cars, trucks, whatever, big passion of mine. Another passion of mine is flying, aviation, general aviation, whatever you want to call it. That is it. Now, if you've been sticking with the channel for a while now, over the past, maybe 6 months or so, I've been pursuing my instrument rating for my private pilot's license. And I am happy to say I am finally at the point where my Checkride is going to happen in, I guess, 3 days from the time that I'm filming this video. And I wanted to talk a little bit about it. So I just wanted to talk through kind of what I'm doing, what you should be doing if you are, at this phase in your instrument training. And maybe we can all use this as a forum to kind of better ourselves as we go into this very nerve-wracking Checkride for your instrument rating. So without further ado, the first thing that I wanted to talk about as it relates to preparing for said Checkride is, of course, the oral portion. So if you are not familiar, maybe you're not a pilot, but you're interested in kind of the, everything that it takes to get your license, to get your instrument rating, so on and so forth. There are really 3 components here. So you have a written test, which can be taken more or less at any point in time throughout your training. And then on the day of the Checkride, so once you have your hours, once you have your cross-country time logged, once you've done everything that needs to be done to be eligible for said Checkride, you then go into the oral portion and the Checkride portion. So basically a spoken test or conversation, and then you go up and fly the plane and, show the examiner that you know what you're doing. So first, let's talk about the oral portion. As we all probably know, there's a lot of acronyms, number one. So Marvelous VFR, you've got ice flags, you have tomato flames, you have flaps, you have grab card, you have aviate, you have arrow. All of these things that apply to you and myself as an instrument pilot on things that we need to do to either talk to ATC or things that we need to have in the plane to be legal to fly said plane. Study up on these acronyms, right? It's a lot of information. At times, it's very, very dense information, but God knows you will be hammered on those acronyms during your Checkride. So that's an easy one to just pump into your brain, say them before you go to bed at night, whatever it takes. But that's going to be a big one. Number 2 is going to be weather, right? Obviously, as a pilot, a big factor that we deal with at any given time is going to be weather. Now, the big change from obviously the private pilot to your instrument rating is when you're getting your private pilot and you're flying in VFR conditions. Yeah, sure, there are some minimum cloud deck requirements or minimum visibility requirements, but the whole idea of VFR is you're flying in good weather. Instrument, on the other hand, is allowing us to fly in less than ideal weather conditions. So low visibility, flying through clouds, you start getting into icing conditions and understanding what types of icing there is, both from the rime and clear ice and mixed ice, but also types of icing. So induction icing, structural icing, instrument icing, all of that, and how that icing is going to affect your decision-making process as a pilot, how that icing is going to affect the aerodynamics of your aircraft. Weather, once again, study up on it, know it. I'm not saying that you have to be a meteorologist, but you should definitely have a good understanding there. The examiner will ask about it. Number 3 to talk about is getting into kind of verbalizing the flying portion of instrument flying, right? And really what I'm talking about there are the types of approaches. So of course we have precision, non-precision, and then like an LPV. So like lateral performance with vertical guidance. Those are going to be your three main categories of approaches. But really understanding what is the difference between a precision and a non-precision approach. What types of approaches fall into the precision category? What types of approaches fall into non-precision approaches? So on and so forth. And being able to explain that and understand why you fly these certain approaches the way that you fly them. So for example, if you're flying a VOR approach, which will be on my Checkride, the DME VOR into Elbert County, Georgia, why is it that, you know, we get to a certain fix and we dive and drive? Why do we do that? As well as minimums. Minimums being different for precision versus non-precision. You know, all of these things start to combine and really showing the examiner that you have a really, really good, solid understanding as to why we're doing what we're doing and not just being a robot and doing it a certain way. That's really what the examiner is looking for. Ultimately, if you can express, you know, your willingness to learn or your understanding of what's going on and show true airmanship, that's going to be a green light in their book, and that's how you're going to obviously pass the Checkride and get that instrument rating, right? So all these things up to that point are a big part of it. Now, another piece of the puzzle that we've already kind of talked about in the approach plate category here is also the IFR low en route charts, right? So once again, transitioning from private pilot to instrument, you know, you're going through your private and you have your VFR charts. You have all of the terrain mapped out. You have the airspace mapped out. All of these things that, you know, are pretty simple, I would say. Yeah, it can be confusing because there's a lot of things on one sheet of paper or one, you know, iPad screen, but pretty simple. When we start going into the instrument portion, we have a whole new chart to look at with different symbols and different meanings, and you start getting into your MEAs, your MRAs, your MAAs, your MOCAs, your AROCAs, your, you know, all of these, once again, acronyms that we need to understand in order to plan a flight safely. A lot of these have to do with obstacle clearance. So once again, from an instrument flying perspective, the whole idea here is that we are in poor visibility, or better yet, we're flying directly through clouds the entire time. So we can't see outside and see a mountain, or we can't look outside and see a cell phone tower. We need to be able to understand what the markings on the IFR charts actually mean in order to stay within the regs of 1,000 feet above within 4 miles of non-mountainous terrain of this obstacle, or 2,004 nautical miles of mountainous terrain for this obstacle. All of this is in order to keep us safe as pilots. I would hope that the emphasis of everyone at this point in time is safety first, right? That's key, right? No one wants to go up and put themselves or, you know, their lives or other lives in danger by doing stupid shit, right? And by being able to read these charts and understand what the little flag with the X through it means, or understanding what an airway with the squiggly line means, or, you know, a Class Bravo airspace versus a Charlie airspace, and making sure that you get from point A to point B as safely and efficiently as possible. That chart is there to help you, and because of that, because safety is at the core of what we're trying to do here, I promise you, the DPE, or the examiner, is going to ask you what those mean and what the implications of each symbol is. Now, really, from the IFR chart, we then get into the cross-country flight planning portion of the oral. So if you remember from your private pilot days, for the Checkride, we were asked to go ahead and put together a VFR flight plan from point A to point B, and nothing is really different when we go to the instrument Checkride, other than the fact that we'll be filing an IFR flight plan instead of a VFR flight plan. Now, with that being said, this cross country that we are tasked to put together, and for the record, my cross country is going to be from Elbert County, Georgia, so Echo Bravo Alpha, to Charlie Hotel Alpha in Chattanooga. This flight planning portion is going to have us, track GPS waypoints, or we're going to be flying a Victor Airway with, changeover points and MEAs and Orokas. We're then going to hit a Tango route, and then we're going to track GPS waypoints to set us up for, let's call it the RNAV 33 into Charlie Hotel Alpha. This is an extremely important phase of this Checkride because this is your real world application, okay? All of the legalities and the random weather that hopefully we never encounter, but we need to know it anyway. Like, all of that stuff is fine and good, and yes, it's important. But the main idea of getting your instrument rating is to be able to fly from point A to point B in less than VFR weather, right? So we need to be able to show Mr. or Mrs. Examiner that we're not only able to flight plan and pick and choose waypoints or Victor Airways or whatever, but also understanding, fuel minimums, for example. So fuel from point A to point B plus 45 minutes, or if you have an alternate that is needed at that point in time, fuel from point A to point B and then to your alternate, and then 45 minutes. And what does that look like in practice? What happens if ATC gives us an unpublished hold to create spacing for other inbound aircraft? Or what happens if we have lost comms on the Tango route that's probably 40 nautical miles away from Charlie Hotel Alpha? What do we do? How do we fly? What altitudes are we flying? What approaches should we expect to pick up during that time when we literally can't talk to anyone? What squawk codes are then, applicable in that situation? All of these types of things where, sure, there's the simple task of flight planning, and there's the simple task of what's our fuel burn going to be and how much fuel are we going to have left over. But then there's also the, what if shit hits the fan and things are going very, very wrong, and we have partial panel going in? How does that change the minimums? Briefing all of these plates, understanding what runways are available at this airport, and how can we use those to our advantage should things happen, right? Once again, all going back to safety of flight, and really be able to start talking through that to show that not only do you understand, the material that you've soaked into your head and you can now regurgitate, but also put it into practice and be a good pilot. So anyway, that's that. There's a lot of information here. If you're still here at this point in the video, I want to tell you that you've got it. It's not that difficult. We've been flying for 50 plus hours on instruments. You know what you're doing. Don't forget to identify your localizer or your VORs. Don't forget to flip from purple, magenta needles to green needles. Time your takeoffs, time your holds, do all that sort of stuff, but you've got it, and that's me too. I'm trying to tell myself, speak it into existence, we've got it. We know what we're doing. It's a lot of material, and at some point it's going to be over, but that's really when all the learning really begins, is once you have that instrument rating. Because as we all know, a pilot's license or an instrument rating or whatever is a license to learn, and so we would be doing ourselves a disservice to just take that information and dump it out the second we're done with the Checkride. We need to keep it, retain it, and continue building on top of it to become better and safer pilots. So guys, if you like this video, please give it a big fat thumbs up. If you have any questions or maybe some other areas that I didn't necessarily touch on today's video for that IFR Checkride, drop them in the comment section down below. And as always, guys, hit subscribe, hit the notification bell. You know the drill. And until next time, peace.